decided, hey, we don't support MAPS 3. This is a big shocker to city officials in one sense, isn't it?
It was a unanimous vote against supporting MAPS 3, at least for that FOP house, and Hensley made it clear that there was another initiative that took place at one point where a new police station was scheduled to be built, and that's one thing, but the manpower is simply not there, and it's not just police manpower he was concerned about. They talked about even park and recreation workers and things like that to upkeep the new projects associated with MAPS 3. So it was a long meeting, went late into the night on Thursday evening, and that the members came up with this unanimous vote. We might now, and he didn't express this himself, but we're thinking maybe the fire might follow along with firefighters.
Well, he indicated that the other unions would be meeting here in the coming week, AFSCME and the firefighters, and both of those unions had their leaders before the city council within the past week and a half, not necessarily voicing opposition to MAPS 3, but at least raising some concerns about the public safety levels of employment.
And these are concerns that a lot of folks had. And now this is going to be interesting how it's handled by civic leaders and the mayor and the council in the upcoming sessions, because they'll have to address some of these. I would imagine at some point they'll be asked about it.
Well, if they don't address some of these things, there are going to be a lot more questions arise over this thing, and it's going to cast a shadow over the whole MAPS vote. They're going to have to address these issues in the coming weeks and make some sort of plan and put a plan on the table to perhaps increase some of the public safety people who will be needed to police and man and oversee some of these facilities that would be built and expanded under MAPS 3. So, the issue's not going to go under the table, and these guys are raising some points that are going to be uncomfortable for the proponents.
Well, it's a pretty serious blow for MAPS 3. I mean, doesn't it look like, this is a big hill for them.
This is an official voice, really, speaking out that's not going to be in support of it now.
Do you think it's enough to toss the project?
I don't think so. I don't think so at all. And, privately, an awful lot of police officers are probably basically in favor of it. But they do have the concerns that their numbers are stretched so thin now that they're going to be stretched even further if something isn't done when all this stuff happens. So I don't know if they necessarily personally want to sink MAPS 3, but they do have some big concerns.
Well, it's not an issue of pay, is it?
No.
The voters typically think whenever police and fire unions, make demands like this, hey, they want more pay. That's what it comes down to. That's the bottom line.
They're stretched so thinly that I think that's their concern, is having the numbers that they're going to need to adequately cover the areas they need to be.
And about that, I asked him specifically, I said, well, here's a hypothetical. If we take MAPS 3 out of discussion, how do we look in western Oklahoma County, for instance, where we've had so much, even residential developments? What are we looking like in the western parts of the county? And he said, well, look, we have this South Division for the police who have to cover, I don't know how many square miles it was. And he says at some point you may only have 12 officers on the job to cover all this new territory where people have expanded their homes and things like that. So it's a concern whether there's a MAPS 3 or not.
Yeah, I don't know. The whole politics of it is fascinating to me, because he contends that they tried to inject themselves into the preparation of the $777 million in projects and claims that they weren't allowed or that they were ignored. And if that's the case, what could they have offered? Could they have just simply said, well, we don't know about any of the projects you have in mind, but at least if you're going to have these projects, consider public safety as well. Right?
Well, we're not privy to what happened in the discussions when they were putting this stew together that ends up being the MAPS 3 package. Who said what, or who said what to whom, or who offered what suggestions, so it's only conjecture, really, but obviously they're not happy.
Well, but I'm going to play devil's advocate here. Where has the police, FOP, and the firefighters unions been over the last couple of years as the city continued to grow? Why haven't we heard their call for an expansion of their forces?
Well, we did as far as building goes, and
I mean,
there's
without
a new
MAP
station.
3 in this.
I know, but there's, of course, this new station's been approved to be built in the western part of the metro. But I don't know why the manpower issue wasn't addressed along with that. Apparently, this, as he made it clear to me, Hensley said that's just for the building. It's not for the manpower.
Well, the manpower issue this is nothing new. I mean, we've heard this for years, that the police department has not expanded to meet the expanding boundaries and populations of Oklahoma City. So this isn't something that just dropped out of the sky. Now, it hasn't been a front burner issue where people are just standing in the spotlight hollering about it. But, this has been brought to the city council's attention over and over. The chief has talked about it. It's not a new issue.
Okay, we'll follow it and see what the firefighters do.
I mean, clearly, the response is now that ball of the discussion is in the court of the city council and the mayor, I would say.
Well, some of the city council members themselves said they weren't a part of the creation of these projects either.
True, but it begs the question: where were the discussions then? Who did come up with these proposals, and why wasn't it inclusive with
I think, and they contend they did a lot of it online, taking hundreds and hundreds of suggestions from people about it.
And that's the focus that was given.
Sure, and I understand, but I contend that if the FOP and the firefighters and the AFSCME want to be political forces in all of this, why weren't they making these demands known when they knew very well MAPS 3 was being drawn up? Even before the MAPS 3 projects were announced, why didn't they say, wait a minute, we were not a part of this, and if you're going to be doing this, you need manpower.
Right.
And prevent and slow down the process more. Instead, they waited until after the projects were unveiled.
Right, but the focus of this initiative, MAPS 3, is projects to be done, not how about associated manpower along with this. Yeah, sure. Should that have been maybe an option on there, or should there have been, I don't know how you do that when you're saying, what would you like to see Oklahoma City do as far as MAPS 3 or continuation of these projects?
Well, MAPS 3 is just like, in a sense, MAPS 1 and MAPS 2 in that they're construction projects. They're building things. This is not sustained funding for personnel. That money for sustained funding for personnel has to come from somewhere else unless we want to make this sales tax increase permanent and forever, which is not what MAPS has been about. It's we're using this as 1 cent sales tax to do this, and this. And, the previous projects have been done. They've been complete. We see the results, and we do see the results.
Yeah.
And now
the mayor would correct you that it's not an increase, it's a continuation.
A continuation, yes.
Yeah, well, even David Holt expressed that when I had him on, the mayor's right-hand man earlier, because he's running for office for Glenn Coffey's seat, and I talked to him about this last Tuesday, and he said, no, it's a continuation. Now, one thing that I haven't done yet that I need to do is bring in John Wessel and concerns about county, and should that be a concern, too, for them? Would this be a bigger burden on them to maybe pick up the slack where we need police and fire on that civic level? Could there be a county component to this?